My name is Jacob Asencio. I was born and raised here on the Flathead Indian Reservation. I attended school in Pablo Elementary. I then went on to Polson to attend middle school and high school. Afterwards, I decided to attend college at Salish Kootenai College, which led me to where I am today, completing my first year as a secondary teacher here at K. William Harvey. So my dad is Ben Asencio. He is a tribal police officer in Pablo. He's been doing that my entire life. Then my mom, Brenda Asencio, she's also a teacher. She began in special ed and has kind of moved around different domains, switched to different schools. Currently, she's located at Tweegle River School. So growing up, I was surrounded by two good role models, which influenced the direction I went with my life. On my journey to becoming an educator, I definitely felt as if I had role models, but it was more of a self-motivated thing in which I wanted to become an educator because at an early age, I recognized that there wasn't anyone that looked like me, talked like me, that reflected who I was as a person. Therefore, I decided I would become that person. So it was definitely self-motivated in which I became an educator, but there were people along the way that definitely helped me get to where I am. Becoming an educator has always been a lifelong dream. I, however, was not aware of the responsibility that came with it. I figured you clocked in, you did your teaching job, and you clocked out. But the more I've been here, the more I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm not just their teacher. I am a bigger figure than that. I am someone of importance. I am their daily consistency. So being here every day has made me learn that I am having a larger impact on these students than I even intended to have. To ensure that I am meeting those responsibilities, I had to begin with relationship building. I feel as if these students were not going to learn anything if they didn't feel as if I cared for them and they could trust in me. So that was my first step when I entered the classroom setting. As I've been here for some time now, I've definitely built those relationships and I've extended those with the families by having consistent contact, sending home gifts, ensuring that the students always have their needs met. And that's really just been rewarding for me as well. So the demographics in my homeroom classroom consist of probably 60 to 70% of American Indian students. The rest I would label as white. There's also about 50-50 in regards to males and females. And then I also have reading groups in which it fluctuates, but a large majority of my students identify as American Indian or have some family lineage. So the creation of a culturally safe environment began on day one when I entered the classroom. I knew I wanted to develop a classroom management style in which it reflected my own tribal values, and it was something in which the kids could relate to. So I chose 3 values instead of 3 rules, which were respect, responsibility, and resourcefulness, all of which are practiced within many American Indian families and tribes. So I decided why not use that within our classroom setting. And the students responded well to that, where we don't really have to have rules. We have our own values in which we instill within ourselves and we want to be prideful of. And my students have responded well to that. And it's definitely just created a feeling of safety and comfortability in which my students are able to express themselves without me putting them down or their classmates. And I feel as if even that example that has been shown by many of my students bringing in household stuff such as their toys and belongings because they feel as if it's safe in the classroom setting and they know like, oh, nothing's going to happen to it here due to my teacher and my classmates. So that's been really rewarding and exciting. So on holidays, I always make sure they get like little gifts or treats. I do a lot of notes throughout like the week or a month in which I just let each student know, hey, this is what you're doing. That's awesome in the classroom. I, as the teacher, recognize that. I like that you're doing that behavior. Keep it up. So just getting those physical affirmations from the teacher, like, oh, okay, I am doing something right in the classroom, even as if they feel like I don't recognize that. And on their birthdays, I always create little gift baskets for each of them so they get that connection, so they know, he recognizes me as an individual, not just a whole within the class. Even though we are a whole community, I want them to know that I have those individual relationships with them. Reaching out to family has been a little bit of a difficulty in regard to the truth of it all, sometimes they just don't have phones. They don't have contact. It's difficult to make that contact. So it definitely started on the first day when families came in. I made sure to be welcoming. I made sure to try and establish that relationship. Last month, I made phone calls home to every parent and let them know this is what your child is doing awesome in the classroom. I love having them, just to create that rapport and so they know that I am there. I do have a positive outlook on their students. I do want to build that relationship with them. And coming up, we have a parent-teacher conference, so I hope to build upon that even more and continue to ensure success within me, my students, and their families. So I do look to incorporate different tribal values and cultural pieces within my classroom setting. Just recently, we had a storytelling unit in which we were originally learning about Chinese symbols in the classroom, and I decided, hey, let's take this in a step in the direction towards American Indians and Native American tribes. So we looked at the Chinese symbols and compared them to some of the artwork in which tribes did through pictographs and petroglyphs. And we looked at historical ones that have been created, and we identified which tribes had created those. And then we looked at where were those tribes from, what reservations are those, just differentiating those tribes and letting them see, not all Indians are the same. And then teaching them that American Indians were originally here and they still are here. You have a teacher who's American Indian. And then that established an even bigger conversation with the students. We're like, Mr. Asencio, I'm Native. So we were able to have that whole class experience where everyone's be able to feel as if they're being represented within the content and curriculum. In regard to storytelling, we elevated that by looking at the symbols. The students practiced carving in clay. They went on to create even more projects. We ended with a cave art piece where they took some pastels and drew out their picture using symbols to represent a story. And then they went back and wrote a story, drafted it, and typed a story. So with any school district, you are entering a school with an adapted curriculum and you must follow as you must. But I take any opportunity in which I can to expand upon it or take an opportunity to make it my own. So I feel as if it's about the teacher taking that task and deciding, okay, what are the main objectives and how can I translate them into the classroom, into activities that are both culturally responsive and teach the students what they need to learn while also identifying them. My advice for teachers that are perhaps hesitant in incorporating American Indian culture and learning within their classroom is to go for it. You have to drop that fear and that mindset of, what if I do it wrong? What if it's not good? Because at the end of the day, it's better that you're even trying to do it than not, because it's exposure for the students. And if you do mess up, you need to have humility and come back to your classroom and say, hey, I was wrong about this. This is a better way in which we can learn. We as a classroom will make mistakes, even I, the teacher. And I feel as if just being humble and entering the classroom with that mindset, like, it's okay if I mess up. We all mess up. As long as I'm trying and making that effort, it's going to have a bigger impact on the classroom then. As far as resources, I was definitely well prepared by going to Salish Kootenai College, as a lot of their courses and instructors influenced us towards going in that direction. But also just referring back to my own knowledge and things that I learned growing up in my community and thinking about what was really important to me in regard to my culture and how can I make that a centerpiece within my classroom setting. Unfortunately, there is an achievement gap amongst our American Indian students compared to their counterparts, and literacy is probably the most foundational component in which we can teach a student in the classroom setting, where I just provide any opportunity for them to explore that. I feel like a lot of the time curriculum can be too rigid or structured, and that doesn't really mesh well with our American Indian students, where if we allow them the opportunity to freely express themselves in a way that's non-judgmental and they feel free to do it, then it's only going to increase their abilities, such as allowing them to have self-selected books, choosing books in which they feel represented by choosing stories that are written by American Indian authors and have American Indian imagery within it, and allowing their writing to be free and giving them a voice within the classroom, which once again comes from building that relationship and setting that foundation with your classroom where, hey, I am able to share out my ideas. I do feel comfortable to do that. Growing up, I was fortunate enough where trauma wasn't necessarily an occurrence within my life. So as I got older and saw more of it, I became more aware and I was like, oh, not everyone has these same luxuries as I have. So coming into the educational field, I had to realize it's not equal. It's not a flat line. Not everyone, it's not fair for everyone. So I had to consistently come into the classroom and choose, okay, what am I going to do today that's going to serve this child without stepping on the toes of other children, and being considerate of, okay, how can I help this child advance in the classroom and make sure their needs are being met without disturbing the whole dynamics of the classroom. So sometimes I will take one student aside and we do have a conversation, and I do listen to them to find out, oh, what's going on? How can we better succeed in the classroom? Because you can't treat all the students as if they're all the same, because they're not. So just developing that mentality and creating those pockets in which I'm able to work with those students and better create those relationships so they feel comfortable. They want to come to school. They know they have a safe environment. Once again, as I said, I have students that bring stuff into the classroom because they feel safe doing so. They come to me for food because they know, Mr. Asencio has it. He'll give it to me. It's consistent. So consistency, honestly, is the biggest thing, because that's what these kids lack at home. So if I'm able to instill that within the classroom, then it'll just better their chances moving forward. Yeah, trauma comes in all shapes and sizes, where we can't just say like, oh, this kid has it worse because of this large thing, but maybe it's not affecting them the same. Maybe the student that has a smaller problem is being affected really strongly by it. So even just being considerate of the students and their feelings and addressing that and letting them know, hey, if it's a major problem for you, then it is a major issue, and not downplaying their emotions and making them feel as if they are able to communicate such. Yeah, too often than not, there is this mindset in which, oh, all American Indian students they're poor, they're not smart, they're behind their counterparts, there's probably this going at home. When in reality, it's just like any other demographic or group of people, there's going to be those fluctuations. And instead of having that mindset and hindering yourself from being able to see, there's so much more to celebrate. And even just picking them out as individuals and celebrating what they're able to do in the classroom, and then expanding on that, on some of those major cultural things in which they do practice, which are significant. For example, I had some boys in my classroom. They were really excited this last fall because it was hunting season, and this was their opportunity to be out, and they could explore, and they were able to share those family relations that they have. So we did take different moments in time in which those students were able to talk about their experiences. And one of my students even came in with a bow and arrow that he created, and he was like, would it be okay if I did show and tell? I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. Take your time. We'll stop everything. So he pulled it out. He showed his classmates. He was so proud of himself. I took a picture. We're going to put it up on our little like board that we do every month for like rewind stuff. So just allowing the opportunity for students to self-express and recognizing that they're not all these like low income, sad, not educated people. Like, they're individuals just like everyone else, and having that growth mindset will only improve their chances going forward. For one, it is just stepping back and being like, hey, I'm going to make mistakes. You have to have that humility with all things in the classroom. You're not always going to have it. You're going to mess up. And just better getting yourself those resources and relations and reaching out to people. You don't even necessarily have to reach out to an actual American Indian. You can talk to other people and they can connect you as well. So I think just opening up the conversation and becoming aware and allowing yourself to learn is the biggest thing that a teacher can do. I would say, in regard to teaching about American Indians in a historical and contemporary aspect, is one, do not get too caught up on just the historical part. Always ensure that the students know these people are still here. They are still amongst us, and they are thriving. They are successful within all realms of society, whether it's in a white dominant society, whether it's within their own cultural context. They are still around. They're thriving. And I think just incorporating it throughout different subjects, as opposed to isolating American Indian education as its own thing, is something you can integrate into all subject areas. I like to do it with my math. Last month, the students cut out their paper moccasins, they decorated them, and then they measured out their feet, and we graphed it, and we made a whole display in the hallway. And we included language through the numbers, so we had Salish numbers, Nku, Esel, Chefla, so it allowed a math opportunity and a language opportunity. And we were able to talk about the historical context of American Indians having to go hunt to make their clothing, the science aspect of the seasonal round during the fall time. This is what occurred. and then contemporizing it by being like, do you guys still wear this stuff? Do you guys still do these things? So I think just interconnecting everything will make it more authentic and enjoyable in the classroom setting. So I feel like it's definitely important in which the educator does differentiate the tribes from one another. And as I said, it's just something that'll come naturally where you just begin to mention it. So today we're learning about this, predominantly done within this tribe. And you just make that a consistent key factor in the classroom. And the more you do it, the more common it will become. And I think that just goes towards avoiding that pan-Indianism in which the kids are able to see, oh, there's different tribes and they have different practices, just like a different group of people. So kind of just normalizing it and also perhaps allowing them to see that. So having a map within the classroom with the reservations or having displays on the board when you talk about this stuff so they can visually identify that and vocalizing it and just making it more consistent within the classroom. They'll expand upon that. I would say to differentiate and to hit on different points of separate tribes and their cultures, first thing you should do is just talk to those people to get a knowledge from them. Because as I said, I don't know everything. I'm just a Salish person. I don't necessarily know how the Blackfeet culture goes or the Northern Cheyenne. So if you reach out and build those connections, then that's the first thing you're going to do. If you don't know who to contact, get some books, go on the internet, do some research. That's what being a teacher is. You continue to learn how to do different math strategies. You continue to learn how to do different literacy strategies. Why can't you continue to learn Native American stuff? So I feel as if just becoming more educated is the first step in regard to addressing different tribes and their information. And once you have that, you can have fun with it. My biggest piece of advice would be relationship building. If you're able to get to know the student and develop that trust and relationship with them, the more likely they're going to respect you, the more likely they're going to show up to school, the more likely they're going to be willful in their learning and wanting to increase their knowledge and to become something. I tell my students all the time, what do you want to be when you're older? I have a native boy who sits right there and he says, I want to go to Harvard. So I vocalize with him, you are going to go to Harvard. These are the steps you're going to take to get there. I will be there for you. Just recently, I went to a soccer game. I consistently show him that relationship aspect where I am there for him and I encourage his goals. And I always tell all my students, you're all so capable of everything. So building that relationship, encouraging them. And also a weird thing I would say is having some humor. I feel like a lot of times teachers are too stern in how they are, where they can't really step back and have that comedic flair with students. But it's really important, especially with American Indian students. That's how it is at home. So if you're able to develop that comfortability and have that ongoing jokes with them, it has served me great wonders in the classroom. My classroom management, I always felt as if it wasn't good because I didn't have those like weird structured things or like those little chants where I wasn't like stern about things. But as I've been able to try it out within my classroom as a first year teacher, I'm like, hey, doing these not so standard classroom procedures works. The students do respond well to it. So that's been really exciting for me as a first year teacher. Did they get home? Do they have food at home? Are they sleeping? Are they sleeping okay? Like, cause I've talked about their home lives and I'm like, and like on long breaks, I'm always worried. I'm like, do they have the resources? And I'm like, I hope they show up to school this day. And I'm like, what can I do to make sure they're happy? Like, they're like my own little kids at this point.